why don't we, Raffi, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then we'll ask everybody to just give a brief introduction of themselves.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. My name is Raffi Sarrafian. I am the Chief Procurement Officer of Cook County.
And you have a law degree from
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll go to the rest of my. Yeah, I have a JD from what is now known as the University of Illinois John Marshall Law School, the University of Illinois Chicago John Marshall Law School. I've been the Chief Procurement Officer at Cook County for the past 3 years. For the 15 years prior to that, I was at the Chicago Park District, where most of my time I was the Park District's Director of Purchasing. And prior to the Park District, I had 5 years at the City of Chicago, where all that time was spent in procurement. So most of my career has been spent in public sector procurement.
All right, why don't we start off with, let's see, I'll just pick Tyler. Why don't you give a brief introduction of yourself? Come on camera if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Tyler. I'm in my second year of my MBA program, studying operations management as a certificate along with that. Yeah, that's about it. I went to undergrad at North Park, so I've been around Mark for a while.
You're currently
I'm currently the grad assistant. Yeah, I'm currently a grad assistant for cross country and track and field. Yeah, so that's kind of how I get my days going.
Perfect. Ryan, even though you spoke, it's your. Well, let's get to you.
All right. Hi, I'm Ryan McNaughton. My background was in finance, so I have a BA in economics and business from North Park, and I spent a few years at U.S. Bank in their corporate trust division, and then I moved over to the buy side at investment management company called Neuberger Berman. I did that for six plus years, and kind of got tired of the office job and was looking for something new. And I was, hey, let's go back to school, learn a little bit. So now I'm in my MBA. Started that in January. I was working part-time through the spring, and now I'm just doing the coaching thing full time. So been around the soccer team for a while, and that's my background. I love playing soccer. I went to North Park and played here, so it's fun to be around the squad again and doing both of those things, helping out the team and also going back for school and studying again.
And are we ranked number 1 D3?
No, we were for a moment. It was interesting. There's the coaches were behind. There's a coaches poll that they do, and then the NCAA has another one, but there wasn't an official one out, and they had someone with a more of an analytical background built out his own ratings, Macy ratings, and so they used that, and at one point they had us at number 1, and then right after that we lost. So it might be a good thing to get the guys off their high horse and be more motivated to work harder, but no longer are we rated up there.
Players I have in my class seem to have learned, they were upset with that loss.
Yeah.
It was a good team.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to Alice. Or, well, Colby, you're up. Why don't you introduce yourself? So, Raffi.
I think you're on mute.
Hi, my name is Kobe Williamson. I'm a distribution manager for a company called H2O Plus. I've been in the supply chain industry for over 22 years. I've done everything from purchasing to inventory control to production management. I'm currently, like I stated, doing some distribution and management work.
Thank you. Alice, let's get you next.
Hi, I'm Alice. I just got back from practice, so this is why I'm in my North Park stuff. I'm the graduate assistant tennis coach here. I'm in my final semester of the MOL, but I'm in this class to get my operations management certificate. I moved to America in 2015 to play college tennis in Alabama, and then I came to Chicago in January 2020. So in January, I'll be looking for a job in the business field, maybe operations, haven't quite decided yet. But yeah, that's me.
Excellent, thank you. Let's see, who's next? Lizette.
Hello.
Hello.
I have my bachelor's in business and communication, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in nonprofit administration with certificates in operation management and fundraising. Yep, I currently work full-time for a nonprofit.
All right. Madison.
Hello, sorry, I still bringing things back after being sick. I'm Madison Kirsch. I graduated from North Park with my undergrad in 2019. Should be done with the MBA program this upcoming spring with certs in operations management as well as finance, and I currently work for Frito-Lay.
Perfect. Sarah.
Hi, Raffi. Thank you so much for taking
Hi.
the time to talk to the class this evening. I apologize I'm not on camera. My son's sick. He's laying here with me. But I'm a project manager and I'm working on the MBA program.
Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. April.
Hi, I'm April Tatum. This is my second class in the MBA. I graduated with my MOL in May. And I'm currently doing sales for a small business in Grays Lake for metal fabrication.
Excellent, thank you. And let's see who else we have. Anton, I think is the only one remaining.
Yep. Hey, so my name is Anton Williams. I'm based out in Columbus right now, Ohio. I graduated my bachelor's in business administration back in about, I think, 2019. I'm gonna be finishing getting my master's next year. My MBA, I'm gonna be getting a certificate, obviously from this class, hopefully, and then other certificate I want to get is going to be in accounting. And what I currently do right now, I'm a supply chain analyst at an automotive company. So I'm like the buyer at our two main DCs, one in Columbus and another one in Phoenix. And I had a couple other supply chain jobs while I was doing college and previously. So.
Excellent, thank you. They're a little depressed in Columbus this week, aren't they?
Yeah, a little bit.
I was going to say something, Anton, but I restrained myself.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not an Ohio State fan, but everybody out here go crazy over them. Like,
Yeah, they don't take losses well.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So what can we say? So Raffi, it's all yours. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. And it's a pleasure to meet everybody. And thank you for those introductions. I'm going to speak today about public sector procurement. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, so forgive me if you are, and what I'm saying you already know. But I'll try to give you a brief overview of public sector procurement through the prism of what I do here at Cook County. So what I do here at Cook County, I'm responsible for procuring the goods, work services, professional services, and construction that are necessary for the daily operation of Cook County. And I purchase for not only all of the offices and bureaus under Madam President Toni Preckwinkle, and there are 6 bureaus under Madam President, then I also purchase for all the elected officials of Cook County. So that means the assessor, the board of review, the clerk of the court, the county clerk, the judges, the state's attorney's office, the treasurer, the sheriffs, and I might have missed 1 or 2, I forget. But I purchase, my team is responsible, and myself are for purchasing for all those offices of elected officials and all the bureaus under Madam President Toni Preckwinkle. It just for purposes of numbers, what does that mean? Right now, we manage over 650 active contracts valued at somewhere a little bit over $2 billion. And annually, we are advertising for new contracts anywhere upwards of 150 plus advertisements for new contracts valued somewhere in the area of at least 450 to 500 million plus every year. Our operation is vast. Just as important as who I purchase for, I'll just give a quick little rundown of who I don't purchase for. I don't purchase for the city of Chicago. I don't purchase for Cook County Hospitals. I don't purchase for Cook County Forest Preserve. Why? Because they all have their own procurement departments and they are responsible for doing their own procurements. So, excuse me. And something I like to say about procurement too, procurement is here at Cook County, it's an essential behind the scenes department that supports the day-to-day operation. At every level of government, federal, state, and local, you will see procurement departments doing the same thing that my great team here at Cook County does. We are advertising new contracts for bid, and we are also managing contracts. Managing contracts typically means, processing amendments, that sort of thing. And so we provide the support. You don't see us, but what you do see is the end result of what we do, because every highway, road, bridge you drive on, every sidewalk you walk down, every park that you enjoy, every fire truck you see down the street, every fire station, every library you go to, etc. All of that is procured by a procurement department. And so we are behind the scenes. You won't see us do our work day to day, but you will see the impact of what we do because it's out and about all around you. And we do what we do here at Cook County. We procure our goods and services, and every procurement office around the country as well does it pursuant to a procurement code that's unique for each procurement department. So here at Cook County, I have to follow our procurement code, which is Chapter 34, Article 4 of the Cook County Code. And in that code, it articulates the guidelines that I have to follow every day. A few more things about our operation. And most procurement codes, including ours, are built on a foundation of a few pillars, and that's we want to make sure our procurement programs are open, they're transparent, they're accountable, they're competitive, and just as important as all those four, they're inclusive. And so what does all that mean? Well, starting with inclusivity, we want to make sure that our procurement program supports small businesses, especially businesses owned by minority-owned businesses, especially women-owned businesses, businesses owned by veterans, businesses owned by people with disabilities. We want to make sure that we're inclusive, that they have opportunities to participate in our procurement program, because like I said before, it's vast. There are lots of opportunities there. And we want to make sure that we are supporting small businesses, because through supporting small businesses, that's how you help build communities and support communities, and that's how you build a sustainable community as well. And so that's crucial to what we do, is making sure our program is inclusive. We also want to make sure it's open and transparent and competitive and accountable. That means anyone can pursue our contract opportunities. You don't need to know someone to get to learn about what we do, nor do you need to know anyone to pursue a contract opportunity, because we are making our contract opportunities available on the internet, and we all are giving all sorts of content and information about our procurement operation on the internet. And that speaks to the transparency as well. And now also it speaks to accountability. With transparency comes accountability, which is vital. And at the end of the day, all of this makes our program competitive, because it's through competition that we achieve best value, best price, best quality. So that's the underpinning or the pillars of our procurement code and what we do here daily. Now, how do we do it? What are the mechanics of doing all that? Generally speaking, we advertise contracts for. Oh, I'm sorry. And for everything we need for our daily operation, goods, work services, professional services, and construction, we need a contract. And so my responsibility is to advertise solicitations for new contracts. And there are generally 3 types of solicitations that we advertise: an invitation for bids, a request for proposals, and a request for qualifications. Now, what are those 3, and what's the distinction? So, an invitation for bids, that's where and this is the one that most people think about when they think about government, procurement. That's where the basis of award is to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. So the basis of award is primarily price driven. Now, what are the other 2 components of that? Responsiveness and responsibility. Responsiveness speaks to, did the bidder comply with all of the formalities that were required in the solicitation, in the invitation for bid? Did the bidder submit all the forms and documents that they were required, that we were seeking? Did they sign the bid? Did they complete the bid page? Did they fill out all the line items? Did they give us all their pricing? The unit pricing for each line item. Did they do that? And then the third piece is responsibility. Responsibility speaks to the operational and financial capacity of the bidder. It speaks to their past performance, and it speaks to any legal issues that might arise that involve the bidder that would preclude us from making an award to that firm. The last thing we want to do is award a contract to a firm that does not have the financial capacity to take on the work or the operational capacity, which means at the end of the day, we want 2 things here at Cook County with all of our contracts. Number 1, we need the services and we need the commodities. But number 2, we want to see businesses succeed with us. That means they get they were awarded a contract and they performed to what was required in the contract, and they were able to grow. And that to us is a success, especially for small businesses, and especially. So the last thing we want is for a firm to be awarded a contract, and then we learn a month, 2 months, 3 months into the contract that they bid off more than they can chew, and their operations are really being stretched too thin. Similarly, we don't want to see an award to a firm that financially didn't have the wherewithal to do it, and then they end up being approaching a precarious financial position as well. Because, like I said, the way we see our contracts, we want to see firms grow with us. We want to see success, and so that is an overview of what is a bid. An RFP is a request for proposals, and unlike the bid scenario, in an RFP, the basis of award is not primarily price driven. Price is a factor, but it's not the sole primary factor in the basis of award. Instead, we award to a firm that has ranked or scored the highest pursuant to evaluation criteria and the associated weights for each criterion that were published in the RFP. So those criteria can, of course, include price, but it will include, the firm's experience. It will include the firm's key personnel who will be assigned and dedicated to the project. It will include their implementation plan. And why is all this important? Because in an RFP, we use it for work that might be highly complex or might require specialized knowledge or personnel that have that have certain experience. Or you want to, unlike a bid, where you're just looking at the lowest bidder and you're not analyzing the lowest bidder against all the other bidders. Here, you want to compare. You might want to compare solutions from, megacorp to small corp to universal corp, and you want to see how they're approaching each, how they're approaching, the services that you need or the services that you describe. Or you might want to interview firms, or you might want to ask a firm for best and final offers. So those are all reasons why you would want to do an RFP. And so when we do have an RFP, and we do them, we convene an evaluation committee, typically of county staff, and they go about the task of opening each proposal, reading it thoroughly, diligently, methodically. They discuss among themselves, and they score. And they're the ones that decide if they want to interview any firms and do that sort of thing. And then the firm that scores the highest after that whole evaluation process, they're the firm that we recommend for award, and most importantly, for negotiation. Because then after the committee does its work, that's when we get to contract negotiation. And then we negotiate a contract. And then once we have a meeting of the minds on the contract, then we go to our board for contract approval. And one thing I didn't say about a bid, with the bid, the invitation for bid is essentially the contract itself. There is no negotiation in a bid scenario. Because with the bid, and what I didn't say about a bid is we know exactly what we want. We want to purchase, this pen, or 65 cases of this type of pen, right? We know exactly what we want, and so the bid itself is the contract. So all that's required is to look at the lowest bidder's bid, make sure they're responsible, and then we're more or less good to go. And then that contract would, if the value of that contract exceeds $150,000, then we have to present it to our board first for their approval before I can sign it. Any contract that is below $150,000, I have the authority to approve it without going to our board. Similarly, in the RFP scenario, any contract that's negotiated upon the conclusion of the RFP evaluation process whose value exceeds $150,000, that has to be presented to our board first before I could sign it. Anything, anything under 150, I can sign it without going to our board. The third type of solicitation that I advertise is an RFQ. And an RFQ is a request for qualifications. Now, sometimes in the world of public sector procurement, you will see an RFQ to mean a request for quotations. So there are two meanings here for an RFQ. Here we use it for the qualification part. The request for quotations, those that use it, sometimes will use RFQ in place of an invitation for bid. It means the same thing. So what is a request for qualification? There are times when we know that over the course of the next 3-4 years, we have a need for, let's say, IT services, whatever it could be, anything for IT consulting services. And we just don't know exactly what we want. Then what we will do is we will put out a request for qualifications. And in that RFQ, we will say, over the next 3-4 years, Cook County will have a need for this type of IT services. And we'll describe generally what they may be: software, hardware, consulting, mobile app development, that sort of thing. And then give us your qualifications. During the life of that contract, during the life of that contract, when we have a need for those services, we will then send a request for services to the firms that we pre-qualify. And I'll get to that. And you will then give us your quote for work. And whoever's quote we accept, the lowest, that's the one we're going to then award that one specific project to. So firms then submit their qualification packages to us. We go through that whole front end analysis. They're not giving us their pricing. They're giving us all their qualifications, their experience information, of the firm itself, of their personnel, that sort of thing. their the firm's financial information. We go through that analysis on the front end, and we qualify them. And by qualifying them, we mean we're going to put you in a pool, and we can have any number of firms pre-qualified in a pool that will, on a just-in-time basis, be ready to submit a quote to us when we send to that pool a request for services. And then when a firm submits their quotes back to us, we award to the lowest and say, great, you got the award for that one specific project. And then that's what an RFQ is. It's trying to expedite the procurement time, the procurement cycle time, trying to make it more efficient. So otherwise, if we didn't have the pre-qualified pool, then what would happen is every time the IT department would have a need for services, my team would have to prepare a standalone solicitation, whether it's a bid, an invitation for bid, or an RFP. And we would have to go through that whole cycle time process to award one contract to a firm for one project. In the RFQ realm, here what we did is we split the procurement process in two, and we go through the qualification analysis at the front end, put all those firms in one pool at the front end, and then when we're ready to go with requests for services for specific projects, we can move very quickly. And it's like rapid fire, go, and submit them and get quotes, and boom, we're done. So that's an RFQ. And those are the three main types of solicitations that we do. There are a few other ways that we procure goods, services, etc. One way is through sole sourcing. We don't like sole sourcing means that we're going to without going out for competitive bid. We are going straight to one firm because there's something unique about the firm, or they have specialized experience, and so we want to suspend the competitive procurement process. We don't like doing that. We do it. We're not the only ones that do it. Every procurement office around the country has a code that speaks to sole sourcing, but sometimes they're necessary. And so that's one way another way that we procure. Another way is what we refer to as piggybacking. Piggybacking means that there might be a contract out there with another public agency, could be the city of Chicago, could be the city of Los Angeles. And they have a contract that fits our specific need. And that contract was a product of a competitive bid and also public. I forgot to say this too. Everything we do is on the competitive side is public, and that's very key. That speaks to the openness and the transparency and accountability. So if there's a contract that another public agency has that's a product of a competitive and public process, then we can participate in it. So instead of us going through the whole process to draft a bid or draft an RFP, and then go through that whole post-bid process of looking at the one bidder if it's a bid, or evaluating proposals and negotiating a contract if it's an RFP, we can participate in that other agency's contract, and we will go to our board for approval for us to use that agency's contract for those services or those commodities. It's a super expeditious method of procurement because, again, all the front end work was done. We didn't have to do it. And so we're just going to the board with a contract, and the board approves it. I sign, execute, we're done. That's another way we do our procurements. And the final way is through emergencies. Can't predict when they're going to happen, but they do happen. And when emergencies arise, we have language in our code that speaks to emergency procurements. Our emergency section of our code says that when practicable, I should get at least 3 quotes. Every emergency scenario is different. You don't know what it's going to be, so sometimes we can't get 3 quotes. We don't have the time. The water main burst, and there's no time to get quotes. We need to get a contractor on site to make the repair to stop the water from flowing out of the main. Other times there are emergencies that arise. We can wait a little bit and we can get 3 quotes. The road, there's damage on the road, but our in-house group, put up some temporary retaining walls. We can wait a little bit and let's get 3 quotes, and then we'll get a firm out there to do the permanent fix. So we do do emergencies. So that in a nutshell is how we do our procurements here. It keeps us extremely extremely busy, but again, everything you see when you're out and about, you will see the end result of procurement, and it was a product of the process and the mechanics that I just described. So that's the quick overview, and I'm glad to take any questions that anyone may have now. And also, Mark, if you want to give the team here my email, I'm more than happy, anytime to take any question.
I think we should open it up to some Q&A. I've written several questions myself.
Sure.
So let's let others start, and if you have questions, just unmute yourself and fire away.
Hi, Raffi. This is Kobe. Quick question.
Hi, Kobe. Sure.
I'm a supplier, and I made it through your RFQ process. How do you choose? What are the crucial criteria to consider me a supplier? So I'm in that pool.
Right. So it varies by the need, and that will be defined in the RFQ itself. It'll speak to the services we need, the type of experience and skill set that we're looking for, and it would also include the criteria that the evaluation committee is going to use to evaluate all of the qualification packages that we receive. Now, keep in mind, we don't use RFQs exclusively. We make all of our we do the invitation for bids, we do the request for proposals. So we do have separate bids, standalone bids for you mentioned suppliers. The bulk of our supplier contracts, I would say not the bulk, all of them are products through either a invitation for bids or through a piggyback.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Hey, Raffi. So my question is kind of along the same lines as Kobe. So when would you go through the RFQ process? Do you do that for every sort of service? Or when would it be that you just be looking for bids, right? Is it a dollar amount? Is it something that you wouldn't need to go through that process?
No, it's not dollar driven. Instead, what we look to is, if you think about the RFP, that's where the work is. Generally, it's highly technical, or requires specialized skill sets, or where we want to compare solutions. We don't quite know what we want. Whereas with a bid, we know exactly what we want. I want security services, at these facilities, for these shifts, or I need plumbing supplies, and I need all types of plumbing supplies, or I need power tools, right? So again, with a bid, we know exactly what we want, and we go out to the market for bids.
Okay. And you mentioned, trying to work with small businesses and making sure that they're not getting into financial hardship. So with bids, there wouldn't be any issues with due diligence, right? Like you wouldn't have to look in to make sure, hey, it's not a big enough contract, that is their next process after.
No, with the bids too, we do ask for financials, what we call financial stability information. So we want to see audited financials, and if you don't have audited financials, we'll take other information, but we want to see audited financials, absolutely. Because like I said, we want our contracts to be success stories in addition to getting the services or commodities that we need. So we do look at the financials of firms. That's part of when I said we award to the lowest responsive bidder, the financial stability piece speaks to it speaks to responsibility. It's part of that analysis.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
Do we have
And
other questions? Oh, go ahead.
If there's something else I forgot to mention, and something that I think is really important about public sector procurement. There are quite a few things, but one of the things too is, I spoke about transparency and openness, and that's so important. We make most of what we do available on the internet. All of our contracts are on the internet, available 24/7, 365. All of our bids are available for download at our homepage, 24/7, 365. With each bid that we have on the street, or RFP or RFQ, we also show you in real time all the firms that have registered to download it. Because if you want to see who your competition is, you can go see it, who your competition is. If you're a sub and you don't think it could be a prime on the contract and you want to see who possible primes are, we give you that information, because we show you the list of firms that have downloaded a bid. Conversely, if you're a prime and you're looking for subs, we show you that list of who's downloaded the bid. I mean, transparency is so key to driving competition, and that's where you drive best quality, best value, best price. But the transparency also plays into something else, and I didn't mention this too. I forgive me, Mark, if I'm speaking too long.
No, take all the time you want. This is gold.
But the other thing about public sector procurement, I talk about best value, best service, best quality, and price. The other thing that's important too is there are policy initiatives that procurement supports, not just the operation of Cook County, but policy positions, and that's what inclusivity spoke to, and that's really important. Again, we're talking about supporting minority and women-owned businesses and veteran-owned businesses and businesses owned by people with disabilities, right? We have those policies. We have a policy roadmap here at Cook County. We want to build sustainable communities and communities that can thrive. And sure, we have a Bureau of Economic Development, and there are other initiatives that we have, but it's also procurement that plays a role there, because we have 650 plus active contracts valued at over $2 billion. We do 150 plus solicitations for new contracts annually, valued somewhere around $450 to $500 million annually. Those are business opportunities. And for each of those solicitations that I advertise, Cook County and locally, City of Chicago does it, and all the other agencies, we attach minority and women-owned business participation goals. So we require, and we have a separate office for contract compliance that is responsible for what we call our MBE and WBE program. And they attach contract-specific goals to every contract that I advertise. And typically those are in the arena of 25% MBE participation and 10% women-owned business participation. And so what that means is anyone who's going to bid with us, if they're a prime, their bid has to include that participation. So automatically, if it's 25 and 5, 35% of their bid price is going to be allocated to the minority-owned businesses, and women-owned businesses. And why is this important? Because again, it's supporting small businesses, and it's helping them grow, so they can grow helping them grow as businesses. And then that translates into so many other wonderful things, including helping to build sustainable communities. So that's important. Another policy initiative that we support here in procurement is green procurement. Our procurement code speaks to green procurement and building an eco-friendly procurement. It's so important to climate change is real, and we've got to make sure that the contracts we're awarding, to the maximum extent possible, are responsible from an eco-friendly perspective. So this is why procurement is, in addition to being that operational support piece, we also support the policy side as well, which is just as important. And that frankly is one of the wonderful things about procurement, especially here at the county, is to work with small businesses, especially MBEs and WBs, to help them and to see them grow. And so that's why this gets back into my homepage. This gets back to openness and transparency and accountability, and making all the and competition, and making all the information we have about our procurement process available at our homepage. That's a and that's something I work towards every day. What more can we do? How can we improve what we do? So.
Excellent. I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Municipalities, especially Chicago, with the vote early, vote often kind of have a reputation for cronyism and all of that. And you're the least likely person to be like that from my perspective.
Yeah, thank you for saying.
And the way you talked about it today would be, all the things you would want from a good procurement office.
Thank you.
The stuff that makes the news is not what a good job you did or someone did doing this. What you hear is, man bites dog.
Right.
And so there's always going to be some of that, I suppose.
Yeah.
One thing that it's not, I know it's not your responsibility, but I think of people's gas and that whole management of that. I mean, it's a disaster.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's why, like I said, that's why I'm a huge proponent of having a procurement. That's why I'm a huge proponent and a strong supporter of openness and transparency and accountability and competition and inclusiveness. It's because of those people's gas situations and others similar to it over the years. And in my career, I've seen a few of them. And the way you combat that stuff is through, again, open. It sounds so simple, but it's openness and transparency and inclusivity and all that. But an open and transparent program is how you combat it. It's so important. And making sure our opportunities are fair, that people have a fair shot, and that our contracts are not a product of those, backroom deals or those dinners at the fancy 5-star restaurant and that sort of thing, right? And that's key, because at the end of the day, we are ultimately responsible to all of you, your taxpayers, and we're accountable to you, and that accountability begins. You need to know that you have a maximum faith and confidence in how any public procurement department is doing its work. Mine, the city of Chicago, Chicago Park District, any, right? And that's ultimately, we're responsible to you. You need to have the ultimate faith and confidence in us and trust in us. And the way we achieve that through procurement is what I've been saying.
Okay. You talked about the Office of Compliance. That's not your responsibility?
No. For some procurement departments, the compliance piece, the MBE WBE piece, is merged or embedded in procurement. Here, that's how it is at the city of Chicago. They have the city's procurement office, and then you have the city's, and then compliance is embedded in the city's procurement office. Here at the county, we're two separate. It's just how it was decided.
In case everybody's not clear, is the ongoing management once the contract is awarded. Quality management. No. What compliance means is, so I spoke about minority and women-owned businesses, and so what they do is they run our minority and women-owned business program, and there are two big pieces of that. The first piece is certification. They certify, minority and women-owned businesses in their areas of expertise. It could be architecture, engineering. It could be, IT consulting. It could be accounting. It could be legal. Anything. It could be security guard services. So they have a very thorough process to certify firms as minority and women-owned businesses, and part of that also includes their certification process includes to determine to ensure that the firm is not a front, that is actually owned and operated
by the person who is, on the paper, on the ownership documents and financial documents, the person who's identified as the owner is the person who's operating and running the business. Once you're certified as an MBE or WBE, then comes the second. Well, there are actually three things they do. I'm sorry. The next thing is they assign the goals to our contract. I spoke earlier to our minority and women-owned business goals on solicitations I advertise, and the Office of Contract Compliance assigns those goals on every contract.
Okay.
Then comes the third piece. Then they track and monitor MBE, WB utilization on every contract to make sure that the prime is living up to their commitment to utilize MBE and WBEs for the services that they identified that are identified in their contract and at the percentages of participation.
So when it comes to the management of the ongoing contracts, that's your responsibility.
Yes, I'm the one that will amend the contracts and manage it and work with departments if there are disputes, performance disputes, or anything like that.
Okay. And do you have like in industry, you have supplier quality management approaches, and do you have an equivalent of that? And
yeah, that right now we don't. We would do it informally. Departments will come to me and say, we have issues, we have some concerns on the performance side. That's a long-range project that's on my desk to implement, to formalize that. But at this point, it happens more informally. We don't, departments will come to me and say there's an issue, and then we get involved, and then we work on resolving the issue. At the end of the day, we really don't like, finding someone in breach or terminating a contract, because what we want is we want continued service. And the last thing we want to do is terminate a contract and then have to scramble to find out how we're going to get a new one, because if I terminate a contract, find someone in breach or default them, that's fine, but then the services we need still remain, and I need to find a way to get these services.
Mm-hmm.
So we usually try to work as hard as we can to avoid the default breach approach.
The basis of supplier quality management often is a set of metrics embedded into the contract to ensure that, here's the expectations. And there's an implicit one going the other way, that you actually pay them on time.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're very good at paying on time, and our contracts, we do have, it does speak in the specifications or the statement of work, it speaks to the performance measures that are required to be met.
Now, for some things that you have ongoing bid, you have an ongoing business and something that you're always procuring, is there some cycle at which you would, every 2 years, every 3 years, we're going to put this business out just to bid?
Yeah, absolutely. The contracts we advertise are typically, putting aside construction, they're typically, not a one-off, not a one-time purchase. They are typically, there'll typically be an initial contract term, could be 1 year, could be 2 years, could be 3 years, and then there will be renewal options after that. We like that because for a few reasons. One, it gives us budget certainty, and two, we're not in a perpetual bid cycle for that particular contract. So because we have so many contracts we have to advertise, and so so we do these term-based contracts. Now, what we do realize is, especially for commodities, the commodity market can be very fluid, right? If you look at the price prices are so volatile all the time. If you price of copper, price of lumber, everything can be volatile. So we realize that on a commodity bid, when we ask for a 1 year initial term, our boilerplate says your pricing will be locked in for the initial term. No, will be locked in, frozen for the initial term, no increases at all. And then we will only allow increases in any renewal year, but then not for profit. It has to be for, a valid reason, like manufacturer increases and whatnot. So we realize that we pay for that. But again, what we're getting is budget certainty and a guaranteed supply over, over of course a long period of time. Now, something that the pandemic and now has pushed a lot of public agencies to is that globally there are all sorts of supply shortages, and that's why a lot of the shelves in our stores are empty or not quite as full as we were used to seeing. And so what we're looking at right now is, especially on commodity bids, is doing rather than a 1-year term, maybe doing something shorter than that, 6 months or even shorter. So we might be doing more and more frequently commodity bids. So we try to accommodate the market as well.
All right, I understand the concept of piggyback. That's I like that. But also, you talked about what you weren't responsible for, Cook County Hospital, the Forest Preserve, City of Chicago. Do you ever go into a bid together with them to pool resources?
Yeah.
Not piggybacking, but a joint effort.
Yeah. No, and thank you for saying that, because that was the other thing we do is we call that joint procurement, and that's where we did one with the City of Chicago and other local agencies for healthcare benefits. And so what we do is that we all come together in the beginning and we work on drafting an RFP, let's say, and then we advertise that solicitation jointly. And that's called a joint procurement.
And you get better buying power with.
Exactly. Economy of scale pricing.
Right. No, that's fantastic.
Which is the same principle behind piggybacking too. Oftentimes, you'll get better pricing.
Piggybacking is kind of good. They've already done the work. And
Exactly.
You just jump in on it.
Exactly.
That's actually, if you can find that, it's probably an easier thing to do.
Oh, it is.
And people piggyback off you, I assume.
Oh, sure. All the time. We're open to it.
All right. Other questions from anybody? I mean.
Yeah. On the commodities, do you guys do a market analysis? What tool do you use?
No, I mean, in terms of going to market analysis, it's what comes in at the time of bid. We are starting to. The department here historically has not done market analysis, strategics, and done a lot of supply chain, and we are going to get into it next year. And get ourselves positioned to do, market analysis and strategic sourcing. So the best thing we do right now is just going to market with our solicitation.
That was a good question, Colby. I was thinking the same thing. Come on, somebody else. You got to have some other questions out there.
And Mark, if they, like I said, feel free to give everyone on the call my email, and I'm more than happy to take questions anytime.
That would be my pleasure.
Raffi, you mentioned the length of contracts. Like what's the typical length of it? It was 1, 2, 3 years, and how would it impact like the budget every year?
Sure.
Is it pro rata or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what we like to do, the length of terms varies by the contract. So I mentioned commodity contracts, and there are other contracts looking at IT. There are contracts that we have a longer term. So our enterprise network is Oracle, and Oracle is a financial system that we all use here in Cook County. Other governmental agencies around the country are probably using Oracle as well. I know the City of Chicago does. The contract term, the initial contract term there is 5 years. And then there are a number of renewal options after that. So they'll take it probably to 10 years if all renewal options are exercised. I wasn't here when that RFP was advertised for the procurement of an enterprise network system. And what I was told is the development of that RFP took somewhere close to 2.5 years. It was highly complex. And then we had to leave the RFP on the street for a long time. To generate a competitive bid or RFP, you want to give people 1, time to locate the bid, 2, to read it, 3, to start preparing their proposal and really sharpening their pencils and ask us questions. And also the last thing we want is for someone to pick up a solicitation and just by looking at the bid period, if it's a very brief bid period for something that's complex, then what we're communicating to the bid world is we're really not interested in competition, and we want to basically to give a contract to an incumbent or to a firm that we know. That's not good. So with the Oracle, we had to leave it out for a long time for the reasons I stated. Then we had to evaluate proposals. Then we had to negotiate a contract. But that wasn't the only lengthy piece. Then, because there was a prior firm on that whose network we were using, Enterprise Network, there was a transition from former vendor to Oracle, and then there was rollout with Oracle after the transition, like training as well. So before the county could really start using Oracle, a lot of time had lapsed. So that's why you have a 5-year like initial contract term and then a few renewal options that will take us to 10 years. Well, generally speaking, we don't like long contract terms. Speaking to the topic of competition and inclusivity, giving people a chance to pursue our opportunities. But there will be occasions like Oracle where we will have long-term contracts. So it all depends. There are some procurement codes in this country that have evergreen contract provisions that say, based on certain parameters, the agency can execute contracts for a very long term, and they could self-renew. Generally for the reasons that I articulated in the Oracle scenario. But we don't. But again, here at the county, we like competition as frequently as possible.
Do you guys ever do marking against private industry?
Do
you ever do benchmarking against private industry for cost? I know you said cost isn't the only thing, but
yeah.
Do you do benchmark?
Again, I mean, anything we really aren't into that yet. That is coming in our operation, and so in terms of benchmarking, it comes when we're evaluating proposals. We can compare proposals against each other, or it comes at the time of bid. When we receive the bids.
So your information is coming from your RFQ, your RFP, and your bid process, as far as performance, history, costing, and you're not looking outside of the private world and seeing what they're paying for some of those services?
Yeah, we at this point, we're not doing a lot of that. We do some of it, but not a lot. Keep in mind too, our bids, our pricing is generally, we like it to be competitive with the marketplace, but we understand why it might not be, why it might be higher. Our terms and conditions, are for one, all of our contracts, whether it's a bid and RFP, one of the boilerplate, the terms and conditions says, we reserve the right to terminate the contract at any time for any reason without cause. We pay a price for that. Also with all of the bids and RFPs that we advertise, we also include what we call our economic disclosure statement, where each proposer or each bidder has to disclose the ownership of their company and drill down to 10% ownership. And in that disclosure, we ask you to disclose whether you have any wage violations against you over the past few years. We ask if you have any relations with any of our commissioners. We inquire. We do background checks. Are you in arrears to the county on taxes? Have you failed to pay child support? And so for all of that due diligence, we pay a price. And there's more but those are just some examples. So that's why, we are going to start doing a more formal price analysis as well, market analysis, absolutely. However, we know that doing business at us comes with a cost as well.
Anyone else? Ryan and Colby and myself have dominated the Q&A here.
I'm curious how you were impacted by COVID when everything was first shut down. How did that impact any open bids, upcoming bids?
You know, it had in that sense, it really didn't. We moved to electronic bidding a couple months prior to the shutdown last March, and we've been receiving all of our bids and proposals electronically, and it's a huge advantage. You know, in the pre-COVID, you know, before we started doing electronic bidding, people would have to come down to 118 North Clark, come up to the 10th floor, walk to room 1018, and drop their bid in the bid box.
And you know what's funny? I'm looking at the website, and I did see that you guys say because of COVID, you now have the online. And I was gonna ask, like, did you not have that before? But I was like, oh,
Yeah. No.
It's in person.
Pardon? You broke up a little bit. Pardon?
It was in person. So
Yeah. Pre-COVID, that's the way the world worked. And people would have to come down here, fight traffic, pay downtown parking, and come upstairs to 1018 to drop off their bid in a bid box. And I will tell you this, the day before we shut down, March 15, at the end of the day, I went to the bid box and I put the lid on top of the box and locked it in place. And to this day, hasn't been removed. And so it's been a huge, a plus for us because, it's a convenience for people it helps them. The other thing it's did, in addition to bids, the other impact of COVID was on our operation, essential to driving. And I've been speaking about inclusivity and supporting minority and women-owned businesses. Flowing from that is outreach. We try to do as much outreach as we can about our procurement process and our needs and how to do business with the county.
I see that you guys have a lot of workshops.
Yeah. And what we have, and what we noticed through we took all our outreach online and are doing it virtual. The numbers of attendees have skyrocketed through the roof. Pre-COVID, we were doing it. We were trying, we would do it all hours of the day or even in the evening. We'd go somewhere in the community and do it and get a nice turnout. But again, people are fighting traffic. They have to park. They have their lives to balance, and it was tough. Now, people can do it wherever they are. They can participate. And if they, we're getting upwards of 120 people on some of our outreach events. We never got that type of participation pre-COVID.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question.
Very good question. Come on, who else? Let's get a couple more.
I think Colby has his hand raised.
Go for it, Colby.
So with 650 active contracts, and you mentioned earlier about, globally freight problems and execution. How do you grade out? You basically said that you didn't like canceling contracts when delays happen because of, the freight situations that we're having right now. How do you manage that? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's really a tough situation to manage, and we work closely with our departments. We're facing it right now. Apparently, the chips that are in all of our cars, there's a delay right now globally in the manufacture of those chips. So right now that translates into a 5-month delay in getting cars. And so, the county here, we have a vehicle steering committee that has to approve the purchase of any vehicle before I can bid it out. And so right now we had our last VSC meeting a couple of weeks ago, and this came up. And so departments were saying, what do we do? What do we do? And what we decided what our vehicle coordinator said, despite this 5-month delay, let's continue to process these. Let's put the bids out, and then at least we'll get in queue with the manufacturers. So that when the 5-month time arrives, or any time prior when the chip is ready and the car's production starts picking up again, we'll be in queue, and we'll be in a better line in queue than if we wait until everything picks up again and then we bid it out.
Makes sense.
What size is your staff? The people that report to you?
When I'm fully staffed, we're at 31. Right now, I'm at 27. And another fun fact about us: Cook County is the second largest county in the country by population. Los Angeles is the first, and then I think number 3 is Harris County, where Houston is, and I think number 4 is Maricopa County, where Phoenix is. And their procurements are almost double mine. Their procurement department staffing is almost double mine.
Really? I mean, that's a lot. It sounds like a lot of buy to manage with 31 people.
Oh, yeah, it keeps me up at night.
I'm sure it does. And I can see why they put a lawyer in charge of this, because the contracts are probably so complex.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, my legal education has helped, and I use it every day. Even though I'm not working in a law office and that sort of thing, I'm using it every day. This is transactional work, so it's contracts, it's negotiations, it's writing. Everything I do has a legal impact or potential for it.
Awesome. Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, Raffi. I know you guys said that you guys changed your bidding process as far as documents to like more electronic right before COVID hit. Is there any other processes that you would change if you could?
Well, not necessarily in terms of process, because the electronic bidding is a big one, and the outreach is another big one. But what I am doing and working on and have been in is uploading more content about our contracts and our procurement process to my homepage. To help businesses, understand how to do business with us at Cook County, to help make our process more competitive, more open, more inclusive. I need to do everything I can to help non-incumbents understand how to do business with us, to understand as much as they can about our contracts that they're interested in, and to give them as much information as I can about our contracting process and our and procurement process. And so I have a number of projects that I'm working on to upload content to my homepage. We already make on our homepage, we make available a buying plan, and now we do it twice a year, where we announce what we're going to be, the bids we're going to be advertising for the upcoming year, and we give people a forecast of when we're going to advertise these things. We make available all of our contracts, as I said, online. All of our active contracts, our inactive contracts, our amendments, they're all there online so people can see in a database that's searchable by keyword, contract number, vendor name, etc. But there's more content that I can add about our contracts, because at the end of the day, when I advertise a contract, who knows the most about it? Who knows how to sharpen their pencil the most? Who knows what we want, when we not want it, how we want it? Who knows what price to which line items on a bid we use the most, which we use the least? So who can sharpen their pencils the most? It's the incumbent, if there is one. And the incumbent's knowledge is up here when I advertise, and everyone else, their knowledge about the bid is down here, or somewhere below the incumbent's knowledge. So my responsibility through making information about our procurement process and our contracts available is to attack this gap, so that I can make sure that the folks in this world have just as much information as the incumbent when I advertise. That's what gets to a competitive program. That's what gets to an inclusive program. So it's not so much process now, Anton, it's more content and information that I'm focused on.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Colby.
Moving ahead of the actual procurement process. So something like the Expressway Act, when they're going to put, cameras on the expressway, are you pulled into that meeting and, alerted like, hey, this is something that we want to do. Can we do it?
No. I mean, like at the county, when we have initiatives coming up, procurement is, departments know, get procurement in, get them in early so we can start planning. Absolutely. We're part of those. We're part of those conversations. To your point, Colby. So as a closer to home example, I'm sure we've all been reading the papers about the money that President Biden and then Congress enacted, ARPA money. The county is going to be getting close to $2 billion of that. And so departments here at the county, with that, there are requirements on when we have to spend it all. The money has to be spent by 2026, which means the projects are going to start flowing in big. These are ARPA-funded procurement requests. So I've been having conversations now for the past few months with departments. Okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Because I got to move quickly. So great point. We're what's essential to procurement, is planning and being involved sooner rather than later.
You touched on spending the money. What kind of discretion does the procurement office have with the budget? Are you impacting that a lot? Is Cook County giving you, hey, here's what you're allocated for the year, spend all this on all the services we need? Or is there discretion to be under that budget?
Yeah. I mean, that spend, ultimately is up to the departments who, on whose behalf I do the procurements. But that said, we work very closely with our budget office. They review, they need to make sure that what we're bidding out, there's money for, that I'm not bidding out something that's not funded. That doesn't make sense, and it's not good for our business reputation. So I do, budget does, give us their analysis and their input. Absolutely.
One thing corporations do is provide people like you savings targets each year.
Yeah. Well, let's that's a separate conversation our budget department has been trying to have with our departments, because oftentimes what we see as we approach the end of the fiscal year is not the saving targets, but it's departments flooding us with their last minute procurement requests because they're in a use it or lose it mode. They want to protect their budget so they don't get cut for the next fiscal year.
Okay.
But I like that idea.
Well, excellent. A few more, or do we let this man go and have his dinner? Raffi, I'm going to send you a small token of our appreciation.
No, thank you. I really enjoyed it, Mark. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. I really had a great time talking to you. As you can see, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy public sector procurement. I think it's great. And as I said, Mark, please feel free to give everybody on the call my email. And if anyone wants to reach out to me at any time, please don't hesitate, and I'll respond as soon as I can. So thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to meet everybody, too. I really appreciated all the questions. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.